The book has the eyewitness account of the day Bhagat Singh was hanged, and how they were, they were locked up much earlier than they used to be locked up. They used to be locked up in the evening. That day, they were locked up in the afternoon. And then the barber came running with tears in his eyes that sab kuch khatam ho gaya. Because so far we felt that the Punjab story and the militancy and everything, there'll only be one point of view that has come out. There's another point of view. The people who were targeted, but due to no fault of theirs. The people who were pulled out of buses or trains or sitting on their shops or hawkers or editors or correspondents. That story needed to be told. Why were we victims? What was our fault? The fight was not with us. The fight was with the center and the Indira Gandhi's government or whatever. Why were we targeted? If we keep looking backwards, the people who are shouting the most are the ones who were never affected by the partition.
Absolutely.
Or militancy in Punjab. I lost 2 people in my office to the bomb blast. My friends, it's okay. अब कितनी देर नफरत करते रहोगे आप?
Hello and welcome to this special episode of Table Talk. It is with Jyotsna Mohan, but this time she's not the anchor. She's actually our guest on the program. I'm Nidhi Razdan, and I'm so honored to be anchoring this special edition of Table Talk with Jyotsna and her father, a distinguished journalist and chronicler of our times, Mr. Chander Mohan. Both of them have written a book which you should be pre-ordering as we speak. It is the story of a newspaper called Pratap. The title of the book is Pratap A Defiant Newspaper, a newspaper that was founded in pre-partition India, that chronicled the independence movement, other big moments in India's history, including the emergency, and really was a newspaper that went against the tide of the times. It has lessons, not just for what happened in history at that time, but for the media in today's India as well. And it really is a remarkable book. Thank you so much, Mr. Mohan and Jyotsna, for doing this today. Firstly, this is actually, Mr. Mohan, in a sense, an autobiographical account. This is about your father.
True.
Who founded this newspaper. He was a freedom fighter. He went to jail some 8 times before the age of 22 or 20. And it's really a remarkable story. And I'm so glad you decided to finally put it down, in writing. What pushed you to finally do that?
Well, Nidhi, we thought that there's a story to be told. And before we've already closed shop. So best is that we write the story ourselves, because we realize that we are not mainstream. We are in one corner of India. We are not even in English. Yet we have a story which very few newspapers can tell about themselves. So best is that we write it ourselves and for future generations to read about it.
So how did Pratap actually start? How was it born?
It was started in 1919 by my grandfather, Mahashaya Krishna. This was 12 days before the Jallianwala massacre in Amritsar. And within 12 days, the British had clamped down on it. And it republished after 1 year, because the British won't allow them to come out. So then the struggle started, the imprisonment, the censorships, and the closing of the newspaper repeatedly. So we thought, best is that we get down to writing about it.
What is remarkable is that your daughter Jyotsna is a fourth generation journalist, I think, then in your family. She's had an extensive career in television, in digital media, in print as well. She's an author. And I would like to put a disclaimer here, also a dear friend who I really admire. Jyotsna, what was it like to write a book with your father?
So, I have to tell you, this is for the simple reason that I think I had to, even while writing the book, actually, my father would keep saying, who's going to read our story? Do you think anyone's going to read our story? And I kept telling him, I said, we have a story to tell. We have a story that has just so many angles, whether it is just my grandfather's story or it's about Punjab or the fact that, we were one of the leading newspapers during the British times to where the media is today. So, I had to keep telling him. So he's, I think, from the generation where they are not, out there. And we are the kind of people who say, yeah, there's somebody to read. And, it was lovely for us because the lady who was reading it, and she sent a message, and she loved the book, and she was telling us that, it's brilliant. And I was telling her, my father isn't sure anybody's going to read this story. And I like what she said. She said, actually, usually the people who say they don't have a story have a story to tell. So it was, I think, a combination of once he was persuaded, because when it came to the Punjab chapter, he wasn't very sure. He wanted to go back because those are very, very painful times. So that, I think, took a little bit of prodding for both him and my mom to get convinced to write it, because he said, either I'm going to go out and write the whole story or I'm not going to write anything. So Punjab was a bit of a, it's a bitter phase. But once he was convinced, I think it was really easy to just go out there and write it. On the flip side, he would tell me, give me a break, and I would say, come on, just carry on writing. We've got a little bit more to go. And he would complain to my brother and sister, she's not letting me go off the table. But I think it was a wonderful journey to write it.
Was that the hardest portion to write about, that period of militancy in Punjab, Jyotsna? And what are your memories of that time?
I think my father's going to be better suited for this, Nidhi, but I have memories. I was 10 years old. So actually, you think you don't, but once I started to write down, I was telling him, I said, I remember this, I remember this, I remember that, there was firing behind our house. I remember this, and I remember you coming home and, the shooting that happened minutes later at the Chowk. I remember the whole house, the whole town, that there is a mob outside and the whole sky is red. So I kind of, once you sat down, I said, my God, I remember way more than I should or I do. And but I think it was tougher for him to write it.
Let me ask you about that, Mr. Mohan. How did you then actually get down to writing an honest account of that very difficult time that you witnessed while running the paper?
As Jyotsna just said, she really persuaded me. She was the inspiration, because, the story, if had to be told bluntly. Because so far we felt that the Punjab story and the militancy and everything, there'll only be one point of view that has come out. There's another point of view. The people who were targeted, but due to no fault of theirs. The people who were pulled out of buses or trains or sitting on their shops or hawkers or editors or correspondents. That story needed to be told. Why were we victims? What was our fault? The fight was not with us. The fight was with the center and the Indira Gandhi's government or whatever. Why were we targeted? So we thought, then once you get down to it, then you keep writing. The first parcel bomb came to us. 2 people died in my office. I was saved due to no fault of ours. So it was a traumatic period. The children Jyotsna and brother and sister, they have been taken off school for some time because there was a threat of kidnapping them. These stories had to be told, and then they started going to school with a jeep full of gunmen and things like that. They were escorted to school, which was, a few hundred meters from us. But then once you get down to writing, then you write what you've been through, and then slowly the whole thing comes back to you, and what you went through, and how bad the period was, how traumatic it was.
It's really great that you did that. To write an honest account of a complex conflict period. I come from J&K, and I understand where you're coming from. When you say that, Jyotsna, you wanted to add something.
No, I just wanted to say that this has been like a reality for me growing up. That I have always been very clear that there are always two sides to a story, and in the Punjab story, there's always been one side that has been dominant. The 1984 Delhi riots are more horrific than we even imagine. Every time you go into that story, it comes out, it's heart-wrenching, right? Then there is the Blue Star, the Operation Blue Star, but nobody speaks about why the army had to get into the Golden Temple. Nobody speaks about the circumstances that led to that army operation. It is either Blue Star or it is what happened later. But what happened before? And I think that is what we've tried to say, because that is our story, and according to us, that's a side of the story that nobody has spoken about, and it deserves to be spoken about.
Blue Star
Absolutely.
came very late. Much had happened before that. Much had happened before that. It's nearly 5 years of mayhem in Punjab.
Can I ask you, that do you ever wonder how your contemporaries at the time may react then to your very brutally honest account of that time period? Because again, like you said, there's been a dominant point of view about Punjab at that time, but you've decided to, in a sense, show the mirror.
Well, we done our job, so let what others have to say, let them say. It's a free country. I mean, I'm sure people will find differences with what we have written, but we have been through it. This is practically an eyewitness account, and so it needed to be told. And if somebody differs with us, well, why not?
Just coming back to the freedom movement, tell us a bit more about Mr. Mohan, about Virendra, and why and how he, in a sense, kept going with all the arrests and censorship, the threats, the paper shutting down repeatedly. What really kept him going? What have you heard about that?
I think his father had got fed up with him. My dada had got fed up of finding the police every few months outside his doors, and the house getting searched. His room was repeatedly searched. They didn't find anything anyway. Even my dadi's, rooms and, everything was searched and everything. Our father never told us any stories about himself. That generation was very reticent. I mean, they didn't blow the top off. मैंने ये किया, मैंने वो किया, मैंने ये किया, मैंने ये किया. They were, so then ultimately this happened because during emergency period, he stopped writing his editorial. Then somebody persuaded him to write his life story. And he wrote that instead of his editorials, he wrote his life story, Ye Inqilabi Din, these revolutionary days. So that was the background from which we picked up other things. But as a person, as a father, there was no communication about what he was. Little bit you knew.
He shared a jail space with Bhagat Singh.
Yeah,
that's quite remarkable.
The book has the eyewitness account of the day Bhagat Singh was hanged, and how they were They were locked up much earlier than they used to be locked up. They used to be locked up in the evening. That day, they were locked up in the afternoon. And then the barber came running with tears in his eyes that sab kuch khatam ho gaya. So that's how they came to know that this is the end. So that's
incredible.
That's incredible. That really the eyewitness account of 23rd March.
I feel that this book, not as I said in the introduction, also Jyotsna, is that it's not just chronicling important periods in our history, but also serves in a sense as a lesson for where we stand today. And you have been part of this contemporary media space yourself. And when you compare the press today, of course, we're not, ruled by the British, or there's no freedom struggle, but when you look at the press today that's so willing to bend over backwards to please the establishment and ask so few questions of it, you look back at a newspaper like Pratap and other publications of the time, and it's incredible the kind of courage they had back then, isn't it?
Totally. I kept telling my father, I think it wasn't it was the newspaper and my great grandfather, my grandfather, but it was also the people that he met on that journey. And they may not necessarily have belonged to the media, but they were just ordinary citizens. But I mean, these people had staying power. They fought the right battles. And I would tell my father, I was like, what kind of people were they that they wouldn't think twice about their lives. It was all about the fact that truth matters, and that freedom matters, that freedom of expression matters, everything was correct. And they didn't care. I mean, some of these freedom fighters who my grandfather engaged with, somebody had a pregnant wife at home, somebody had, old parents, but it didn't matter. What mattered to them was, the right fight. And we are so far away from it. My grandfather, my great grandfather, I think he'd written somewhere that, we're not vendors, that, we sell out news. We are here to stand and bring out the truth. And we're so very far from that story.
That was a special time, Nidhi. That period brought out the best in men. You're fighting the British. You're fighting an enemy, basic, and you got to do it. And ordinary men and women became heroes those days. Durga Bhabhi and other ladies, revolutionary ladies, they've come in the book. I mean, married women. One lost a husband and yet she kept on. So that period brought out the best. And one more thing I would like to tell about my father, that, he was in the British prison 8 times. Then partition happened. We lost everything. We had a bungalow, an office, a reputation, a prestige, even a car at that time in Lahore. When we came to India, to Jalandhar, when the first bicycle was bought, it's supposed to be bada kam, great achievement done. Pehla cycle kharida. But there was never bitterness. We were never taught to hate anybody. Like you find these days very common now, you're hating somebody for something done 500 years ago or 400 years ago. We were never taught to hate. Never once by my parents. To hate the other. I mean, you understand what I'm saying.
Yes.
Those were different people, different times. I mean, I remember that earlier when we were very young, the border was open between India and Pakistan initially for many years. Some Pakistani families would come to Jalandhar to visit, And twice or thrice my father got home stranded Pakistani families. And I remember the family left and there were a lot of banana peels under the bed because they didn't get bananas in Pakistan. But that kind of attitude, that a Hindi word udar, it's not liberal, more than liberal, forgiving.
Big-hearted.
Big-hearted, probably. Ho gaya. We were never taught I mean, this is why, these days I get very perturbed when I see whatever is happening. That let's get on with it. If we keep looking backwards, the people who are shouting the most are the ones who were never affected by the partition.
Absolutely.
Or
Absolutely.
militants in Punjab. I lost 2 people in my office to the bomb blast. My friends, it's okay. अब कितनी देर नफरत करते रहोगे आप? It has to end.
I can't tell you. Wow, it really. What you have said is like it's touched my heart as well. It's a lesson that my father always taught us. Also, never to hate communities, never to move on from the past and find a way to heal and to reconcile. And it's so difficult, isn't it, to say these things today when everyone is always constantly, as you said, looking for a fight. This is a conversation actually we could have had for so much longer, but I really, really look forward to this book being out. This is a great piece of history. And I think that as a teacher of journalism today, I would really recommend to my students to read it and see what real journalism was about once upon a time and not what they see today. Mr. Mohan, you're a wonderful, wonderful person. I'm so honored to have spoken to you today. And Jyotsna, I love you. So enough said, but congratulations to both of you for this book. And thank you for doing this.
Thank you
for doing it.
Yeah, yes. Thank you for being
Pleasure's
so
mine.
patient
True
with
honor.
us.
Not at all. Thank you.